in today's video we're going to talk about the March FAQ and errata for Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team. That's right, there was a Kill Team errata. You could be forgotten for not knowing about it because there was no Warcom article. But it's there, it's in the downloads section, it's on the app. But don't worry, I'm going to walk you through all the material changes. So we start off with changes for core rules, and there's quite a lot of them to go through actually. So from the core book we've got 3 erratas. First of all, key principles damage. Add the following text to the end of the first paragraph. Some rules allow an incapacitated operative to perform a free action before being removed from the kill zone. Such an operative cannot perform more than one free action, excluding place marker. In this instance, and that operative's player decides the order of any of its rules that occur before it's removed from the kill zone, taking precedence over the player with initiative deciding. Now, I don't know what the thing is that led to this change, what the chain of rules is that could lead to you having several post-mortem abilities, but there's obviously been some shenanigans with post-mortem abilities because there are little weird changes throughout this document to that kind of thing that don't seem to change anything for me the way I was playing the game, but yeah, there's obviously been some shenanigans there. If you're familiar with whatever the post-mortem shenanigans was, please let me know in the comments. But now you can only do one post-mortem activity, let's say. Key principles and distances. So if an operative is carrying a mission or objective marker, the marker is the same distance as that operative. Presumably before it just said marker or mission marker or objective marker. So now it's clarified that it means mission and objective markers. It's fine, that's how I was playing the game before. Actions, shoot, select valid target, add the following text. An operative cannot be in cover from and obscured by the same terrain feature. If it would be, the defender must select one of them, cover or obscured, for that sequence when the operative is selected as a valid target. So the blue is a lie. This is a balance change. It should be a magenta. This is a material change to the game. Nobody was playing the game that way because there was nothing to imply that you had to choose between cover and obscured. So there were a limited number of situations where you could set up something to be both in cover and obscured, and there were a number of top table players exploiting that regularly because obviously a powerful defensive thing. So now they said, look, you have to pick between cover and obscured. Makes the game more interactive is probably a good shout, and lowers the skill ceiling just a little bit as well. Stops there being these weird little tricks that only the people at the very top of the game understand to do right. But it is a balance change, and I wish they wouldn't present balance changes as like clarifications and grammar edits essentially. Right, we've got a whole load of FAQ questions to slog through here. So, question: can you explain further what it means when a rule states that an operative is in cover and obscured if another target was, e.g., the blast weapon or bloodied dark favour? So, when determining cover and obscured for the operative, whatever was determined for the primary or original target is the same. So, in the case of blast, secondary targets are not in cover or obscured if the primary was not, and they are if the primary was. I think this is a new change for this rule set. I've definitely had people shooting me with blast weapons and determining this cover status of the different targets in the blast individually. Not sure if that was being done erroneously or if this is a core change now, but my feeling is it's a change, and it means that your sort of cover and obscuring status is determined only from the initial model that was shot with a blast weapon, which is cool. Question: the rules that prevent an operative from being selected as a valid target prevent that operative from being a secondary target with a weapon with the blast rule? No. Okay, good, fine. Question: when counteracting, if a rule has increased or decreased the cost of an action, does this affect what actions the operative can perform? For example, can the Angel of Death mobile chapter tactic allow the operative to perform the fallback action while counteracting? Now it's 1 AP. Yes. A powerful potential buff there for the Angels of Death as well. I mean, not a buff. I do think that was probably always rules as intended, but it's an interesting little combo that they've now pointed out to the unwashed masses, right? Question: if a rule allows an operative to move any remaining move distance from previous action, and its move stat is modified between those actions because it's become injured. Is the remaining move distance modified? No. So your move distance is locked in when you start the move action. That's fine. Can operatives that can only perform a restricted set of actions, so bomb squigs and the like, perform actions that are treated as one of those actions like hatchway fight? Yes, if it's permitted to perform the action it's treated as. So, because hatchway fight was never listed out, but whenever you can fight, you can hatchway fight is what they're saying, which is fine. Good. This one's really interesting. Can something be wholly within a territory while also being on the centre line? Yes, but it wouldn't be within the other territory. So it was pointed out in the Discord, if there's a space on the board that is wholly within a territory while also being on the centre line, the centre line is never defined as having a width. So the way this makes sense to me is the centre line has a width of, let's say, 1 mil. Okay, so there is a 1 mil strip of no man's land, in which you count as being, in which you count as being wholly within the territory the rest of your base is in, if your base isn't in both territories, if that makes sense. So it's a 1 mil strip of land in the centre of the board that doesn't impact the territory that you're in either way. It doesn't count. It's not a third territory. It is a null territory called centre line. Now, I've pulled that 1 mil thing out of my backside just to try and conceptualize, because a millimeter is about the smallest distance I'm willing to conceptualize on a kill team board. Realistically, I think they're talking about it being a plane, a point. So even if it's a millimeter or if it's a plane or what, realistically, the only way you are placing a miniature such that it's wholly within your territory and also on the centre line is just by explaining to your opponent, and realistically, if you're playing a map with a crease on, the base is going to be touching the crease, right? And not going over it. And that's why I get a mill from, because a mill's got the width of the crease. You're just going to have to play by intention, which you should be doing anyway. Say to your opponent, look, I'm placing my miniature in the area where it is both wholly within my territory or your territory and touching the centre line as provided for by the FAQ. Which, yeah, I mean, that's just what you're going to have to do, because it's not a thing that I want people to have to try and manually do with dexterity, basically. Question: can rules that ignore or reduce damage inflicted by an attack dice ignore or reduce additional damage inflicted by that attack dice? Yes, that's good to know. Is damage from the Devastating Axe rule considered to be additional damage inflicted by an attack dice? And can it be ignored by rules that reduce damage from an attack dice? No. Good. If you automatically retain dice as a success before rolling it, can the dice be rolled and does it have a numerical result? No. Okay, not sure what someone was trying to do there, but fine. When retaining a dice, if the rule retains a fail as a success instead, or a success as a critical, does it change the numerical result of the dice? No. Yes. That's the rules. Now, people did sometimes change the thing to a 6 as part of their mental bookkeeping, but doesn't actually do it, right? That's understood for people, things like Wrecker Crew and other bits and pieces. Okay. Question: if I attempt to resolve a rule that allows a friendly operative to perform an action upon incapacitation, here we go again, right? Have I used any limited number of uses for that rule once per turning point? Yes. Okay. When resolving rules that relate to an operative being activated or already resolved in, resolve rules that specify what an operative would, when activated, would be operative first. Then resolve rules that specify when an operative is activated, starting with rules that damage it, e.g. the Plague Marines poison. Okay. When resolving rules that relate to an operative being incapacitated, what order should they be resolved in? resolve rules that specify when an operative would be incapacitated first, then rules that specify when it is incapacitated, followed by rules that specify before an operative is removed from the kill zone. In the case of the medic rule and similar, this rule would resolve first and then prevent any relevant is and before rules from being resolved, if any, as the operative would no longer be incapacitated. This is a very technical document that isn't going to impact much of my play at the level at which I play, except for perhaps the thing about blasts feels like a change to me, and the thing about not being able to be in cover and obscured feels like a change for me. But generally, it's a very technical document for very technical people, and covering some very niche scenarios, I think. Approved ops, so there's a change to the approved ops. This one I am familiar with. So when you're doing the plant beacons mission action in a kill zone that uses close quarters, you ignore the wall terrain when measuring the distance. So this is actually a nerf to plant beacons on the Gallowdark, because plant beacons stipulates that your beacons have to be 6 inches from other beacons, but on the Gallowdark it usually says you never measure through walls, so you could basically pop your beacons down anywhere as long as they weren't physically in the same corridor. So this is saying, no, you still have to print it 6 away as the crow flies now and ignore any walls. Plant beacons are still really good though, it's just now not like borderline broken on Gallowdark, which is fine. The universal equipment, so they've changed the portable barricade. The portable barricade cannot be set up within 2 of other equipment terrain features, access points, or accessible terrain. If it is not possible, the portable barricade is not set up again. So they changed it last FAQ. Blankets, so you couldn't use equipment like barricades and barbed wire to block off access points. Presumably, some absolute galaxy brains out there were taking the portable barricade and then picking it up and moving it and then dropping it such that it blocked a door or an access point. And this is usually saying, yes, very clever, but no, you can't do that either. Bye. And now we're into the team rules. So, of course, they're Void Scarred. If a Starstorm duelist is on guard, and I interrupt an activation to perform a shoot action against an enemy operative within its control range, can I use quick on the trigger to perform the shoot action normally, or must it be a point blank shot? The former, you can perform the shoot action normally. So the way this works is when you guard, if someone charges you and you're on guard, you can do a point blank shot against them where you can shoot them, but it's I think you're at -1 to hit. It's some penalty, but the Starstorm duelist can normally shoot when it's in control range anyway. So it's just saying that yes, this is another instance of where you can shoot normally within control range because you are a special thing. Right, good. Scout Squad. So the grapnel launcher rule: whenever this operative is climbing up, you can treat the vertical distance as less. And this is to clarify, because some people were saying that there's no rule saying that you can't climb down, and therefore abilities that treat the vertical distance as less when you climb up could also be used to treat it as less when you climb down, because sometimes it worked out as less than the fall distance, right? So climbs go up, not down. And then we got the Exaction Squad. So there's a lot of cleanup of verbiage around the medic, most of which doesn't seem to make any real difference. So when the operative will be incapacitated, which I think possibly is different to the word removed, so it's that weird timing thing from the FAQ. The operative has 1 remaining after, cannot be incapacitated remainder of the action after that action. Doesn't make any difference. The bit here that may be a salient point is actually the clause at the bottom. You cannot use this rule if this operative is incapacitated, so the medic can't use the rule if it's incapacitated, or if it's a shoot action and this operative will be the primary or secondary target. So now, if someone's throwing a grenade, for example, a frag grenade, and your medic is one of the targets, then they can't medic other people in the same thing that are also targets, regardless of the order in which you resolve the wounds. And that is a material change. So medics generally have been nerfed a tiny bit, so that if you're throwing a blast weapon and the medic is caught in the blast, that turns off the medic's ability to revive someone within that blast. Okay. And then in the rules commentary, we've got the when guilt reveals itself strategy ploy. If you have super conceal, essentially, when guilt reveals itself, still allows you to shoot that miniature if you're within 4 inches rather than 2, which makes sense because super conceal had the exemption for, but they can still see you if they're within 2, and that is the rule this when guilt reveals itself is interacting with, so it makes sense that you'd be able to spot things when you were within 4 with that ploy. The Gellerpox infected, so it's mainly a language cleanup. For putrescent demise, which is an explode on wounds, they've added this clause before it's removed from the kill zone, which is part of them trying to fix whatever weird thing people have been doing with these post-mortem actions. I'm not totally sure. Like I said, if you understand the post-mortem action thing, please explain it in the comments for all of us, okay? And then the Glitchling operative has super conceal, but it has to be on a conceal order to be on super conceal, which wasn't a clause before. It is now, so that's good. That feels like it was an oversight. That's fine. Inquisitorial agents had a medic, so the medic's got the exact changes as the exaction squad. But we have some interesting FAQ questions. So, when using the absolute authority firefight ploy, can I use it after seeing some of the effects of a ploy the opponent uses? For example, if they must select an operative, can I use it after they select them? No, you must use it when the ploy is declared, before any of its rules are resolved. We expect players to be sporting and give their opponent the opportunity to use absolute authority when they declare a ploy, rather than resolving its rules. So, you are not allowed to deliberately wait till after they've said how they're going to use the ploy. On the other hand, your opponent can't simply race on and go, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go blah, 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 and they'll be like, oh, sorry, you can't use your thing now because I've already announced what I was doing with it. So you have to play this, you're going to play it properly, you have to be like, I'm going to do this. And then you either do a pregnant pause, or even better, and even more clunky, you go, do you want to use absolute authority? As much as prompting your opponent like that is kind of annoying, but that's now where they've put you in the rules. Basically, you have to kind of say to the Inquisition player, hey, do you want to use absolute authority? Or, or maybe, I guess if you want to be finicky about it, you can count to 3 in your head, you can be like, but they could still argue you hadn't given them the chance. I don't know. Unless you explicitly are giving them the chance, they can still argue you haven't given them the chance. So, it's a really tough one. Interrupts are always tough in any game. Question. When using the intense scrutiny strategy deployed, my opponent has a rule, so this is the same thing. This is the same 4-inch, 2-inch super conceal change that we've already read previously. That's fine. Navy breaches. This had me scared for a minute that they could no longer take 2 gunners. The next sentence that's not printed in the FAQ says, and they can take 2 gunners. This is just language cleanup. You can basically ignore it. That's fine. Void dancers. Climbs go up, not down. Yeah. Mandrakes. So mandrakes have been sufficiently nerfed here. So the Dirge Maw, who's the one who can interrupt an opponent's activation to himself activate. There are 2 nerfs. Basically, you can no longer stack the Dirge Maw and the Night Fiend, who could also interrupt an activation. You can't stack those 2 things together. Okay. But also, and really importantly and really impactfully, is this last bit. After completing this operative activation, your opponent activates that enemy operative if possible, or activates a different enemy operative if they can't. So now it's no longer the case that the Mandrake player gets to be in a position where they're like, okay, their opponent tries to activate somebody, they go, aha, activate their Dirge Maw instead, and then if they manage to kill that operative, the Dirge Maw, the hunting focus guy, now the opponent still gets a turn with a different miniature. They don't get to lose a miniature and lose a turn, right? Which is pretty important. So, a pretty significant nerf to the Mandrakes there. Again, presented in blue. I disagree that there was anything in the rules text to even imply that this should work like this before. So, I think this should be presented in magenta, GW. I really do think your lack of magenta in a couple of places in this document is a complete lie. But there you go. And then in the rules commentary, how does Soul Strike weapon affect with rules that allow your opponents to retain different dice rules on 5s, e.g. Hardy, or retain rules on a particular number? Their weird Soul Strike thing where they're trying to wound you on your APL effectively takes precedence over all those kinds of rules, which is good to know. Warp Coven. So there's a small additional nerf to Warp Coven because they weren't nerfed enough before. And again, this should be in magenta because it's a balance change. So when you're using Fate Myself as my weapon, and you've got replacement dice, those replacement dice cannot be retained as crits if they're not sixes, right? Is what that is effectively meaning. You know, it cannot be re-rolled or retained as a success or critical success if it's not, right? So you can't interact with abilities to make them crits or successes if they're not natural crits or successes. Fine. Eleusidian Starstriders have the medic change, and we can move on. Brew Brothers have the climb change. Okay. There is this business. I think we've covered it before, maybe not. So unquestioning loyalty, we will cover this more. It pops up again and again and again. Unquestioning loyalty is basically an ability where you can redirect the shoot action that somebody else is using and make it shoot at a different target. And it's basically saying that the cover and obscured status of the replacement target is determined by the original target. So you can't force them to instead shoot somebody who's behind a wall and is therefore obscured, right? If you do that, they don't count as obscured if the original target wasn't obscured, because the unquestioning loyalty, it's that get down Mr. President style ability where although you don't move the miniature, the guy taking the hit in the sort of headcanon of the game moves to intercept the hit, right? Makes sense. Psychic Familiars apparently also didn't need to be on Conceal to benefit from Super Conceal, so that's changed. Medic changes is fine. And Ruthless Coordination, where you can draw a line of sight from another miniature for somebody, apparently gets to completely ignore smoke. So that's cool. Hunter Clade have the climb change, climbs go up. Chaos Cult, climbs go up. This is where I thought I'd put this one before Brew Brothers. So this is where I explained the force redirected shots thing, but I've done that now. So the force redirected shots change, and the weird verbiage added to the post-mortem actions that I don't fully understand, but the before it's removed from kill zone, it gets to do its thing. Fine. Novitiates, stuff we've already seen, before it's removed from the kill zone, and the medic change, wonderful. Kazakin, get the medic change, wonderful. Wormblade, get the get down Mr. President change, okay, good, fine. Pathfinders get the medic change and the get down Mr. President change on the drones, fine. Nemesis Claw, weird one. So Nemesis Claw have a 5-up local Death to the False Emperor, which only affects Imperium things. Now you can't use this 5-up after on your attack dice for friendly Nemesis Claw operative if it's shooting against, fighting against, or retaliating against an enemy operative that has the Imperium keyword. Like, I can't quite work out. I don't think this is a material change. I just don't know. I think maybe you can't now use it by accident when you're not facing a non-Imperium team. Don't know. Terrachem's changed slightly. Terrachem used to do D3 damage when the operative was readied at the start of the turn. Now it does D3 damage when that operative is activated, which is a material nerf just about, because you could have an operative on one wound that's going to die as soon as it is activated, but whenever it hasn't activated, it's still a body on a point and everything else, so you can keep that kind of zombie operative around for longer if that's what you want to do. Right, and you can have the activation if you're trying to play out activations and be like, okay, I'll activate this guy and kill him. You go again, right? So there's two things there. It's effectively enough. Deathcore, get the medic change. Rattlings. So Rattlings have a buff to the Battle Mutt. The Battle Mutt used to say you can't end the move within 3 of an enemy operative. Now it's within 2 of an enemy operative. So the Battle Mutt gives you a move when you are charged. Yeah, which is a slight buff, right? Grappling hooks, climbs go up, yes. And then these FAQ questions that really have me scratching my head. Can you clarify what the team selection page means when saying up to 3 times, instead of selecting one of these operatives, you can select one rattling ploy to cost you 0 CP for the battle, in reference to Bulgarian and Ogrin operatives. A rattling kill team always consists of 1 rattling fixer and 10 additional operatives. Up to 3 of those can be Bulgarians or Ogrins. For each of those 3 that's not, you select a rattling operative and 1 ploy to cost you 0 CP for the battle. Like, I don't get how that wasn't intuitive to everybody and their dog, but there you go. And then the other question is, can you clarify what you cannot use this rule after consecutive enemy activations means in the Scarpa rule? Again, mind-numbingly obvious. After each enemy operative's activation, there is a possible opportunity to use Scarpa. Whenever you use one of those opportunities to perform a free dash action with a friendly operative, you must pass on your next opportunity to do so. Yes, very obvious. Wrecker Crew. Wrecker Rampage. So, Wrecker Rampage has been clarified. You can gain and spend Wrecker points during the same action. You can do it in an order of your choice, unless you started with 6, in which case you can only spend them. That's how I was already playing it. That's how I assume it was worded. Apologies if I was cheating, but now it works how I thought it did, which is good. And then what I think is an obvious buff to the Demolishers Detonate, damage from this weapon rule can't be ignored or reduced. Right, so that's pretty cool. Again, I think that one's a material change, should be in purple GW, but yeah. You cannot ignore, reduce the damage from Detonate at all. It just all goes through, which makes it stronger. It does make it stronger against certain teams, so fantastic, good, because of course that Detonate rule is going to probably kill the Demolisher as well, unless luck be with you. Fast Luck Kimban, yes, climbs are when you go up, yeah, good. Phobos Strike Team, the climb change and the medic change, good. Plague Marines. So some wording cleanups about post-mortem abilities, and the champion operatives Grandfather's Blessing rule seems to work exactly the same way, but they've cleaned up the words a little bit, and you can't poison your own dudes, which I'm not sure who was trying to poison their own dudes for fun and profit, but you can't, which is fine. That's it. So mostly it's wording, not working. Mostly it's wording clarifications. There's a few moments where I'm looking at it and going, who thought the rule worked that way? Right, that's mad. Why did that need to be an FAQ? But I think there are, in here, 3 or 4 really genuine and really impactful changes. You know, you can't resurrect somebody if it's from a blast or torrent weapon, and the medic was one of the potential targets, right? You can't claim cover and conceal from being shot, right? And a few other things that are going to be meaningful for individual teams as well. But they're buried there inside an awful lot of things that will make no difference to the way most people are playing, or that genuinely just make no difference. I think it's very clear that the Kill Team rule set is very badly designed. I'm not saying it's a bad game. Don't take that quite out of context. But as a document, it's pretty badly designed. Why isn't Medic a rule in the core book that then can just be given out? Oh yeah, he has Medic. We all know what it does, and then it could be updated and changed in one place. You know, I teach programming in high school, and this is exactly why we tell people to use functions and procedures, right? So you can call the same function over and over again, and if there's a bug in the function, you fix it in one place, and then you don't have to go all through your code and fix the same problem in 9 different places. And that is precisely what they're doing, and it's so frustrating because it's so inefficient. That why isn't there effectively a medic function and a climbing equipment function and all these things, and then they can just be changed in one place, and then the rules fly. Now I understand there are arguments that people say that that's actually bad for game design, because that does lead to a lot of people having to flick in the book. They like to have everything presented on one card, but I dare say you could do both. You could have a universal special rule in the book in one place with one name, and then you could reprint that rule in full on each reference card if you wanted to, and then you only still in your FAQ document would have to change it in one place, and it would automatically change in all those other places because it would be the same rule, just reprinted with the exact same verbiage, rather than what we have in Kill Team, where often it's the same rule but with a different flavourful name. Not always. Medic is called Medic wherever it is, but even then, the fact that it has to be changed in each individual FAQ document it annoys me. It annoys me, it does. I want to say thank you to all my members, subscribers, and supporters. I know that this could have come out a couple of days ago, but obviously I have my schedule where I game on Wednesdays and I do a bat rep on Thursdays, so this was the next opportunity to do a video. I'm trying to get a video out every day, apart from Wednesdays, right? So I'm hoping to stick to that schedule where sort of there's a video on Monday, live stream Tuesday, nothing on Wednesday, battle report Thursday, video Friday, which is today, video Saturday, video Sunday, video Monday. And I'm trying to stick to that, so that's what we shall hopefully get. And then moving forwards, I'm going to try and have sort of themes. So Monday's video is always that, Friday's video is always this, but I'm working on it. It's all being worked on. It's all being worked out. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow, well, tomorrow's going to be something else. All right. See you guys. Have a good one. Cheery, bye, 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 bye.